Hi, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, that was a little, what shall we say, a little surprise the other night when I put the camera on, and during the course of the video that I made, there was a little brownout, and during that little brownout, on this side here, appeared a face. And it may have been vague, but right at the time it was very clear. It was very clear to me, and it was a face. And I called Beth over. She couldn't see it. Now, I'm very familiar with what's behind me, and the wood and everything that's there it's plywood, and it is facing what is actually our bathroom. It was not, I did not hallucinate, I did not do any of those things which are normally assumed to be prevalent when seeing something that you think may not even be there. Something was there, something that resembled a face, and I saw that. I didn't attach any great importance to that. Others did. Others said, oh, it's the Grim Reaper. People always jump onto stuff which has me dying for some strange reason. But it does bring on all of those views and hard-held, firmly fixed ideas about what is possible and what is actually happening around us. And it makes me ask, modern science I think that modern science can be dumb. Just to rephrase, any time that you want to find out if what you are doing right now might be in some way at risk of changing, and that is look back on the past. Now, when I look back on the past, I realize that I did some extremely dumb things, and if you extrapolate on that, that's a favourite word of a friend of mine, Nick Carter, always used to like the word extrapolate. Yes, well, if you extrapolate that and bring it to its present logical conclusion, you might assume a certain difference in viewpoint. So, let me tell you, I'm not an educated man. I'm actually a very simple man. I'm a common man, I think of myself. Just happens that I'm leading an uncommon life. But what I do know is that all of the so-called brains of the world have made the most horrendous, incredibly stupid statements at various times. Take all of our leaders. There is not one single leader that we have that has not made an ass of himself at some time or other by making some incredible faux pas, some incredible misstatement. We had a president of the United States for the longest time that used to say nuclear, and I never quite understood why somebody didn't say to him, Mr. President, the word is nuclear. But that didn't happen, and he continued on blissfully and didn't change anything at all. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that as far as a face appearing, which has not appeared since, now, we haven't changed the plywood on the outside of the CR, so everything is as it was. Someone actually sent me a photo that they took. They said, "Yes, I saw it." I think it was Angie. Forgive me if I haven't quite got that name right. I think it was Angie, and she sent me a photograph. Now, Angie, for the longest time, I looked at that photograph, and all I could see that it was a black background, and when I zoomed it on the camera, well, on my iPhone. I zoomed it, and I actually could make out the features of a face. Is it mumbo jumbo? Is it all that superstition? Is it hallucinations? Someone very rightly said, as soon as you start to get into exhaustion, which certainly we've been working very, very hard lately, and as some of you have so very kindly described me, looking haggard and tired, thank you for that. So of course, maybe it's hallucinations. Maybe I think we should actually be remaining open to things which have no logical explanation according to our present information. Now, according to our present information, there are no such things as ghosts. You have ghost hunters going around the country with the most sophisticated equipment, and they can see some weird things, but they've never actually seen a ghost walking around like the Dickensian character in Scrooge, clanking chains and stuff like that. That they haven't actually seen that yet. Right. Now, my point is that if by remaining open you still keep your sensory perceptions about you, who knows what you will see? We presently are living in what we think of as a linear time frame. We think of time as being linear, and depending on how you look at that, it may or may not be true. Now, what quantum physics, what quantum mechanics, quantum physics, for as little as I understand of that science, has been trying to say for some 60 or 80 years, that the universe is not quite as we think it is. And they've said all along that the universe vibrates, it pulsates, it's a vibrating universe. And what it does is it pulsates on and off. It goes off, on, off, on, off, on. Now, if you think that it goes off and on, where does it go when it's not on? So, maybe you have a situation where you've got this. Now, instead of going, oh, nah, come on, instead of doing all that and disbelieving, in other words, shutting your mind to anything that doesn't quite come up to the education, maybe if you remained open to these things, then you would actually start to see things differently. Our perception is not what we think it is. For instance, when even on a three-dimensional basis, when we're looking at the images, am I about to be hijacked?
I'm scared.
You're scared. We're talking about the face. Beth will not talk about that face because she's afraid that it might be the Grim Reaper. Somebody else said maybe it's a guardian angel. I like the guardian angel story.
Mm. Yeah, because we got another subscriber.
What importance is another
this is
subscriber?
what he said.
I can't see that, honey.
No, in the video of yesterday, the frustrating day in frustrating day in the immigration.
Yes.
Right. In 4-11 mark, there's a face of a child.
It's the face of a child. I can't see that.
I'm scared.
I would love to have a look at that.
Or I don't know. Come in, Pogi. Good boy.
It's the face of a child. Now, I
Here.
can't actually.
Here is face of somebody.
Now, what we're looking at now is we're looking at a picture. Let me see if I can get it to you. When you're not going to be able to see it. Is that in the viewfinder, honey?
Yeah.
seeing on the left-hand side of my head, right? On the left-hand side. Actually, I said it was on this side, and it wasn't. It was on this side. But now someone's seen something here. Maybe I'm being crowded out by angels. Certainly there's only one Grim Reaper, isn't there? So I should be safe for a little while.
Jesus name.
But the photograph that I was sent, I could clearly make out the features of a face. But it wasn't dependent on the photograph, because I'd already seen it in real time when it was actually happening, and I could see a face behind me. So, what was I saying about the pulsating universe before Beth came over and started being scared? The pulsating universe, wouldn't it be logical to think that when the universe pulsates off, then does it go somewhere? Is there another universe that goes like this? When this one pulsates off, this one comes on. As I say, don't shut down and just disbelieve. I used to try to get some points over to a friend of mine, a dear friend, who was extremely educated. He came from pretty well-off people, and so his education was it was $1 million education. He'd gone to one of the great colleges in America. But when I spoke to him, his education got in the way of him ever learning a new viewpoint. And that's what you have to be aware of. I know people who are very good at all kinds of things about electricity. They know exactly everything about electricity. And if you point out something about energy being free and abundant, they say there's no such thing. There's no such thing as perpetual motion. That means that whenever anything starts, if you have a pendulum, and the pendulum is swinging backwards and forwards like this, eventually it will decay, and eventually it will stop, given the right amount of time. Because I think that the scientific maxim is that there is no such thing as perpetual motion. And yet they're finding things out all the time on this. And even though it might seem as if I'm just wandering around from one subject to another, and one idea to another, it is actually all on the idea that if you actually don't disbelieve, then you have a chance of finding something that you formerly did not believe and now can see it's different. Now, this happens all the time in everything that you do. It's happening. I had a friend who was one of the first to teach me karate, and I worked with him for a while, and he told me how he had always held this particular karate exponent, karateka, I guess, and he had always held him in awe, that this was a man that was unbeatable. And the man, he just revered him. And there was one guy that was never going to be beaten, and that was this man. Well, my friend entered in a tournament, and yes, you're probably ahead of me. Who did he draw but his hero? And you can imagine what he went through. All of his set-up beliefs was that this man was unbeatable, and yet he was there to win. Well, the short story is that he knocked the guy down. He won. So this hero was beaten by no other than him. So what was formerly absolutely no way anybody's going to beat that guy, he was beaten. If you think about Sonny Liston, Sonny Liston was like a killer boxer. I mean, he was an absolute brute, and he went in and you know, guys were beaten before they ever struck a blow. They were beaten by Sonny Liston. And then you had other people who also there, right? You had Muhammad Ali, and he went in and he set everything and upset everything. And then you had Mike Tyson, who, if you ever watched any of Mike Tyson's knockdown, he just went in there and went, and the guy was down. I actually saw one of Mike Tyson's fights, and he hit the guy, and the guy flew in the air like that, and actually was horizontal before he hit the canvas. They all got beaten. Somebody said, I don't believe, that's not right. And they didn't believe that what everybody thought was right was right. So in everything that you do, there's this element of it's going to come up against something that you have formerly held as unshakable. And science is no different.